Hello, Steel City Surge fans. Kippy here, coach of your Steel City Surge. We are back for another season of WPF, this time Season 20 in our Delta Division. And as you can see, there's a couple of new logos on the screen. We have the Pokemon World Championships logo, as well as the Pokemon Champions logo. Pokemon World Championships is a VGC-style tournament bracket, basically, and that is the style of format that WPF has decided to go with. That is because Pokemon Champions recently released on the Nintendo Switch, and we wanted to kind of mix things up a little bit. So, we are running a VGC-style draft. The way it's set up is we had 20 coaches split into 2 draft pools in Delta, so there's going to be a lot more coaches in the scene this season, but this is a VGC-style draft. What that means is we have some different rules. We are going to be showing 6, but only bringing 4 to each individual set within each weekly match. The format is double battles, so 2v2 in those 4v4 matches, and then it's a best of 3 match set up across each week. So we have to win 2 sets per match every single week, but we can change which of the 4 Pokemon we bring from our given 6. We cannot have any duplicate items on any Pokemon, and we cannot have any duplicate Pokemon, so like no 2 Rotoms can be on the same team, that kind of thing. WPF also has 2 Mega Pokemon per roster. We also have to use Pokemon Champions for every match, and we can only use home-eligible Pokemon because that is the only thing acceptable on Pokemon Champions. So, limited roster of Pokemon that we can use, limited number of items, and the move pools have even changed from Pokemon Champions, from like Scarlet and Violet, and those kind of things. So, with that being said, in our given draft, we had the 2nd overall selection, so we ended up getting Sneasler. Sneasler is heavily used in Pokemon Champions right now. It's very fast, very physical, gets some very good moves like Fake Out and Close Combat, and we could utilize its Unburdened ability with a White Herb and Close Combat, as well as any Intimidators on our opponent's roster to get a very free speed boost. Very good Pokemon, very highly used, very good offensive typing, and somewhat of a decent defensive typing too. 4 times weak to Psychic is kind of a pain, but our next selection makes up for that. We end up snagging Kingambit, one of my favorite Pokemon in draft leagues. Dark and Steel type is very, very useful, especially when we want to switch into a Psychic type move used against Sneasler. It is very good for that. It's also pretty slow, so we can utilize Trick Room. Plus, it's got a really powerful Sucker Punch, and its abilities Defiant, help against Intimidate, so we have 2 different ways to deal with Intimidate, as well as Supreme Overlord, which can be used in certain scenarios. It's not as good in doubles as it is in singles, but still a pretty useful ability. Now, with this selection, I wanted a pretty strong core of 3 Pokemon. One of the Pokemon that I was hoping to fall to me was Mega Frostlass, and it didn't quite fall to me, but I ended up getting a different Mega that is also really effective with this duo, and that is Mega Delphox. Mega Delphox is a new Pokemon with Legends ZA, and it has the ability Levitate, which is really good for if we have already Mega this guy, we can switch into an incoming ground attack against Kingambit. Garchomp has been heavily used in Pokemon Champions as well as Kingambit and Sneasler, so ground type attacks are pretty prevalent overall, like Earthquake, Stomping Tantrum, that kind of thing, so having a Pokemon immune to that is really nice, as well as it is a very fast and very specially offensive Pokemon, and it has a good array of moves, including Heat Wave for some spread action, Flamethrower, Overheat, Psychic, I believe it gets access to Energy Ball, that kind of thing. So, very good specially offensive Pokemon, gets fast Encore, which is really, really nice for disruption purposes, and overall just a really good way to round out this 3 Pokemon core that we have. Now, our next selection, I wanted a little bit of support, but also some offensive prowess, so we snagged Dragonite. Dragonite has some really good abilities. It's got Inner Focus and Multi-Scale. Both are really, really good in VGC. It also gets access to Tailwind, which is pretty nice, and pretty good priority in Extreme Speed. It also gets a very wide array of moves from physical and special moves, and can be really useful for support or offense or whatever we really need it to be. Our next selection, we wanted some different speed controls, so I ended up picking up Blastoise. Blastoise is another Fake Out Pokemon, but it gets access to Icy Wind. It is also like a decently bulky water type, which is pretty nice. Helps build out a little bit of a Fire, Water, Grass core with Delphox. Not to mention, it also gets access to Shell Smash, which can be really good offensively. Plus, not being the Mega form, we get another item slot for it, so that can be pretty useful too. Our next selection, we ended up going with Mimikyu so we could have a bit of a Trick Room mode with our team. Plus, having a Ghost type and a Fairy type is really, really strong for this team. Fairy, obviously, to handle any strong Dragon types like Garchomp, as well as Ghost to be immune to any Fake Out users, as well as Disguise, which is basically a free Focus Sash, more or less. We get to take any free hit, well, any hit for free before our Disguise is busted, so we can hit off a Trick Room or Swords Dance or anything like that. It's a very good Pokemon, very useful in VGC, and I'm excited to use it. I haven't really used it in singles, so let's see how it goes in doubles. Our next selection, we picked up Rotom-Mow to round out a Fire, Water, Grass core with Blastoise and Delphox. Not to mention, Electroweb is really, really useful. It's another Levitate Mon, so we don't have to worry about ground types. And its Grass typing is just pretty good defensively. It can be Choice Scarf for Volt Switch shenanigans, Will-O-Wisp shenanigans, Trick shenanigans, and even useful as just Electro Web for speed control. There's just another way we can control the speed of the match, which is really big in VGC. Plus, it gets some pretty good strong moves. So, nice selection here. Ended up sniping a handful of people with this pick, and as well as another pick later in the draft, which we will get to in a moment. Our next selection ended up being Emolga. This Pokemon was 1 point and gets access to Fast Encore, as well as a Motor Drive. So we have not 1 but 2 immunities with this guy since it is a flying type. So we have Electric Immunity, Ground Immunity. Let's get support. It's another Electrowebmon and can be useful in certain situations. It can be used with Rotom-Mow in certain situations, which would be really, really nice for like discharge into Motor Drive, that kind of thing. So excited to use this guy, see what he can do. Obviously, it's 1 point, so it's probably not going to do a whole lot for us, but it's nice to have that kind of thing in the back of my opponent's head when carving. Our next selection ended up sniping a lot of people in this draft for whatever reason. Weirdeer, a normal Psychic type Pokemon, doesn't really have a whole lot going for it, but it was a 4-point Mon with access to both Intimidate and Trick Room, which is really, really nice across the board. I don't have an Intimidate Mon at the moment, and having a secondary Trick Room setter outside of Mimikyu is really nice to have. Not to mention it's immune to Ghost type attacks, so really nice there. And it can provide some support here, so I'm interested to see what it can do. Maybe it'll come to a couple matches here and there, but having Intimidate for such a low price was very useful. Our last selection of the draft was Mega Venusaur. I wanted a second Mega. Nothing else that was available towards the end of the draft really spoke to me, and everything else I had picked out a bunch of different roles for the roster, so I really just needed to fill a second Mega slot, and this guy is so tanky. Base Venusaur gets access to Chlorophyll, so if I'm running into a Sun team, I can utilize that to my advantage prior to Mega evolving. And it gets access to Thick Fat after the fact when it Mega Evolves, so I lose 2 weaknesses and make them neutral attacks. Plus, it's very tanky, gets access to Sleep Powder, and like Leech Seed, Giga Drain, as well as powerful Sludge Bombs, which is really good into the Fairy types of this format, like Mega Float Eternal, for example. So, overall, very good selection for us later in the draft, and a secondary Mega to use along with Delphox. So, if in certain situations where we don't need Delphox, we can bring Mega Venusaur instead. So, overall, this was our draft for WPF Season 20. I really like this roster. If I do need to make some changes, I will, but for the time being, this is how we're going to start the season. So, thank you guys for watching this draft analysis. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you for Week 1 next week. Peace.